Hello, hello. Happy Friday. Srasan Pet Talk. I am Sarah of Expat in Croatia, and this is 5-Question Friday. Every Friday at 5 o'clock Croatia time, answer 5 questions about Croatia from people who have sent them in on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, expatincroatia.com, email, our consulting sessions, and people who play a boombox outside of our window. So I am on the island Čiovo today visiting my ceramics teacher. And they have apartments that they rent out during summer here, and I'm in their konoba, which is like the ground floor. And as I said, she's my ceramics teacher, so there's ceramics everywhere. And I'm going to take you on a little tour. So I'm going to show you a little bit of the view here from where I am, and then I'm going to show you a little few of her ceramics because they're all really beautiful. So that way you can at least get an idea of where I'm at today. Let me unstick my dress from me because it is so damp. Okay, hang on. So here we are. So I'm on the northern side of Čiovo, I suppose. Rob, are you sending me tunes? Send it to me on WhatsApp. Hey, Kathy, it's so nice that you're here. Okay, let me show you. So all of these lamps she made, and then you can see there's ceramics all over the wall. She did all of these as well, all of these sculptures. I mean, everywhere. You can really see her art in every corner of this place. And I did ceramics when I was a kid. It was one of the many classes I was put in as a child. And then when I came to Croatia, actually, I'd already been here for a lot of years. Someone told me that they were doing ceramics here. I was like, are you serious? So she has a class that she does in the off season in Split. So if you're looking for a ceramics class, she is amazing and excellent. I love it. So I was in that class for many years. I think I'm going to return to it in the fall. I stopped going just because I got so wrapped up in Expat in Croatia. But anyways, I'm here on Čiovo today, completely sweating my nuts off because it is warm. I took last Friday off. I just needed a little bit of a break. I was on vacation. So I missed you. Did you miss me? But I'm back, and I've got a few things to tell you before we dig into the questions, okay? So first, I told you a few weeks ago that I filmed a little cooking episode with a friend of mine. We made a pohani tun, and that episode came out last week. I think we already shared it on stories, but in case you missed it and you would like to see that episode, it's only 15 minutes on YouTube. We can send you that link. Just send us a DM. We'll send that over to you. Sauna is good weather, whether it's summer or winter. Is there a conversation that's going on that I don't know about? It feels like a sauna. I feel like I'm just drenched. So I think I'm going to be doing this like a lot today, quite honestly. All right. So the other thing I wanted to tell you. So I think we announced this past week, I was elected to the board of the Zagreb chapter of the Association of Croatian American Professionals. So I will be on the board for the next 2 years. And our first event that we're having is with the U.S. ambassador, the new ambassador. So she became the ambassador, I think, at the start of 2024. So on September 6th, we're going to have an event for members only. So if you are an ACAP member, I hope that you'll be there. We're going to be sending out an invitation to you probably in the next week. If you are not an ACAP member and you would like to attend, becoming an ACAP member is a great opportunity to network with other professionals and attend all of our members only events. It's only $100 a year, which I'm a part of a lot of these organizations, and that is the most affordable one of all of them. So you'll be able to submit questions, and this one's going to be really neat, and I'm going to kind of tell you just because this is my own like professional development. So I'm going to be the MC for the event, which I feel like is a really, really big honor because I'll be able to introduce the ambassador. I'm also going to do my own interview of the ambassador in front of the audience, and then I'll do the member Q&A with the ambassador as well. And I'll also be welcoming all of the Croatian officials and dignitaries and people from the state, and I will be practicing their names over and over and over again to make sure that I get them all right. So it's a big deal for me as an individual human. So I'm really excited about that, and I've got to start preparing for that. So that's a cool thing. That's on September 6th, so I'll be going up to Zagreb for that event. And what was the other thing I wanted to tell you? Oh, yeah. Okay, so 2023. Sorry, guys. I'm having a hard time thinking in this heat. Jeez Louise. Do you feel like that? Do you feel like when the heat happens this hard that you just cannot like complete a thought? Because I'm feeling that way today. Thank goodness I have a script of questions, guys. Okay, so in 2023, I was completely honored by winning the Croatian Women of Influence Award, which is given to me by the Croatian Women's Alliance. That was a giant, giant deal for me. I was such a privilege, such a privilege. Anyways, they reached out to me, the Croatian Women's Alliance, Carolyn Spivak, who runs that alliance. She's the one who founded it. This year is their 10th anniversary, and she asked me to be a judge to help pick the female winners for 2025, which is a huge honor. I'm so excited. I read that on Saturday night, and I was just like so giddy I couldn't go to sleep. So I'm very excited to be part of the jury panel to select the new incredible, extraordinary Croatian women for 2025. So stay tuned for that. We will make a decision on that in November, the day before I have my speech in Dubrovnik on AI. I'll be doing that. So yay. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and dig into the questions now. Oh, Rob's asking, where's your fan? I do not have a fan today. I am not in my home. And actually, I have like a hand fan, but I left it upstairs. And upstairs feels very far away right now. So I'm just going to sit here and melt in front of you instead. All right. So, first question comes from Angus on the 5-question Friday forum. I want to import a 5.5 meter speedboat, which is manufactured in 2011 and has only been used for 80 hours. I want to keep it at my holiday home in Šibenik. So at the time of original purchase, the owner paid VAT and the UK was part of the EU at the time. The owner has original invoices and I will have a bill of sale. Post-Brexit, where does this paperwork stand? I'm hoping, as it is a small pleasure craft, tax will not be an issue. It doesn't matter what laws were in place when the original owner bought it. What matters is the laws that are in place at the time that you buy it. So yes, you would be subject to tax. So let me kind of walk you through this. So if you're importing a boat from a non-EU country, which in this case the UK is a non-EU country, then you'll need to pay import duty plus VAT. Okay, VAT is 25% tax in Croatia. Now, if you want to avoid paying these taxes, you can do a temporary import. This means it will be registered outside of the EU and the boat can only stay in Croatia for up to 24 months in one period. Now, if your boat is in Croatia during that 24-month period and you leave Croatia during that time, so you're leaving your boat here that is registered abroad, you have to notify the customs office of this before you leave. So that's important to understand. So you've got two options here, a temporary import or like an official import, and both of them have pluses and minuses. So we do have a guide on how to import a boat to Croatia. And it goes over the situations for non-EUs as well as EU-registered boats and all of the nuance as well as the procedure on registration. So if you would like that, if you're Instagram, send us a DM. Cam will get that over to you. If you are on YouTube, just go down to the description and you'll find a link to that guide, okay? All right. So next question comes from Danica on Instagram. I recently solicited my domovnica here in the Embassy of Croatia in Chile. I was told that domovnica is also a document of citizenship, but what I understood is that domovnica is proof of nationality. I understand citizenship and nationality are two different things. Can you help me understand the difference between rješenje and domovnica, please? So she's kind of got like two questions in here. One of them is a little bit hidden, and that's the difference between citizenship and nationality. We're not going to address that today. We're going to save that question for another time. So I'm just going to like zero in on her main question here, which is what is the difference between rješenje and domovnica, okay? So simply a rješenje is a decision. A domovnica is an identity document. I have a lot of trouble saying rješenje, like that is a difficult, I always have to think about it before I say it. It's not something that has ever been reflexive for me. Okay, so if you're a Croatian out there, I'm sorry. I know that my accent on that word is just god-awful. I'm working on it though. I'm working on it. All right. So once your application for citizenship is approved, you're going to receive rješenje, the full name, and I'm going to do the whole Croatian thing, okay, for your entertainment. Rješenje o primitku u Hrvatsko državljanstvo. So that's a decision on the admission to Croatian citizenship. So this is going to be issued to you by either the consulate or MUP within Croatia. So wherever it is that you submitted your citizenship application. This document is formal proof that you have been approved for Croatian citizenship. Now, a domovnica is a document that serves as a proof of citizenship and states when you were granted Croatian citizenship. It is often a requirement during different application processes in Croatia, such as enrollment in the book of births, applying for a Croatian passport, and getting a birth certificate. There's also sometimes you have to provide your domovnica when you're applying for a job. I remember the daughter of my former landlord, she had to get a new copy of her domovnica when she was applying for a job, or I think maybe even taking the bar exam, something like that, because she's a lawyer. So sometimes you can be asked for your domovnica in a job-related capacity here in Croatia. Now, something I want to explain to you, because this is something that's very different than most other countries in the world. In most countries, your birth certificate is proof of your citizenship, but it's not in Croatia. So you can have a Croatian birth certificate in Croatia and not be a citizen. You can also be a citizen of Croatia and not have a Croatian birth certificate. Yeah, I mean, it's classically Croatian complexity. You know what I mean. I don't know if I said that in the cleanest way possible. Okay. So that is why, since your birth certificate is not proof of your citizenship, that is why they have a separate document called a domovnica that is your proof of citizenship. So that is the first you get the decision on citizenship, then you get your domovnica, and then you can go through the other steps in the process. So we have a few guides for you that would be helpful. So one is how to obtain a domovnica. If you are granted Croatian citizenship, the consulate or MUP is going to automatically give that to you. But if for some reason you need a new copy of it, that guide will kind of walk you through it. Or if you just want to learn more about what the document is, that guide's going to help you on it. Also, how to apply for Croatian citizenship, all of the different bases, and then for each base we have a sub-guide that goes through all of that. We also have a guide on the next steps after citizenship. So that's going to walk you through getting your domovnica, getting your registering your foreign birth, because that is a prerequisite to getting a birth certificate, getting your passport, and getting your osobna iskaznica, which is a national ID card. So we have all of those things. If you're on IG, just send us a DM. If you're on YouTube, find it down in the description, okay? So our next question comes from Tonechuck. I hope that I pronounced that right here on IG. Is there a residential tenancy act in Croatia? I'm thinking of purchasing an apartment house and renting it to locals, but I'm concerned about landlord matters, such as can you raise the rent or evict a problem tenant? So first I want to say thank you. Please do that, because Croatia definitely has a housing crisis when it comes to long-term rentals, and we need all the people to rent out long-term as we can possibly get, because everyone is renting out short-term to tourists, and barely anybody is renting out long-term to people who live here and need to rent, which is not just foreigners. There are Croatians who need to rent long-term. So we really need more people to do that. We do not need more tourist accommodation. So in terms of the answer, yes, there is a law. So it is called Zakon o najmu stanova. Najmu. Zakon o najmu stanova. Yes, which is a law on renting apartments, okay? So rent cannot be raised during the term of the contract. It can only be raised after the term of the contract is concluded and you wish to issue a new contract for a new term, okay? Hey, Michael, welcome, welcome. So a landlord can evict a tenant under certain conditions. If the tenant does not pay rent twice in a row, but you must notify them of the cancellation of their contract before they pay. If the tenant violates the terms in the contract or the rules governing apartment rentals as defined in the law without written warning, and if the contract allows for it with certain notice. So I want to expand on this last one, because this, I think, is something that's really important for people to know. It's a really big topic, especially here on the coast, especially in Split, because you have a lot of people that rent out long term and then they end up kicking the person out in April so that they can rent to tourists, okay, with seemingly no notice at all. Now, it depends on what is in the contract, whether or not they can do that. I think in some cases, they just, the foreigner doesn't know what their options are, and so they get out without, putting up much of a fuss. They can only kick you out, like terminate a contract. If you haven't done anything wrong and you're meeting all your obligations per the rental contract, the only way that they can end your contract early is if there is a term in the contract that allows them to do that. Now, it is very common for there to be a term in the contract that says you can, get out of your contract with 30 days notice. You can do that as the tenant, but that also applies to the owner. So if they give you 30 days notice, they can kick you out. Now, if that clause is not included in the rental contract and there's nothing in the rental contract that gives the landlord permission to kick you out, they cannot. They cannot do that. You do not have to leave. They cannot just kick you out because they want to kick you out. And I think too often foreigners are just like, well, I don't know what my rights are. And so they just leave without putting up much of a fight. But if there's nothing in the contract that explicitly allows the landlord to do that, they cannot do that. Now, I know this question that he's asking is from the perspective of a landlord. Now, there's a few things that are important to know, in addition to what I've already shared about how you can legally end a contract or kick somebody out. So one, as far as the act is concerned, we do have a link to that. We can provide that to you. We do have a guide on how to rent a property to long-term tenants. That is a guide for landlords. We also have a guide on renters' rights. So that is from the perspective of the renter. But if you want to be a landlord, then that could also prove useful to you because you understand what the rights are of your renters and what your obligations are as a landlord, okay? So if you would like any of those guides, send us a DM here on Instagram, or if you're on YouTube, just go down the description. You can find those links, okay? So this brings us to our lawyer tip of the week. Yes? Yes? Aha. Okay. I put it in a different email. Just a moment. Here it is. Okay. All right. Here we go, guys. Oh, yeah. Da, 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 da. Always have to have a sound effect. Okay. Sometimes Croatian law does not apply. There are some procedures that can trigger other jurisdictions and therefore the laws of other countries like divorce, custody, marital assets, and last wills. Croatia's procedural law will always apply no matter what, but the material law, which governs the content of a procedure, may involve the law of a foreign country. If you are not a Croatian citizen or the procedure is related to a court decision from another country, then it can trigger international law. For example, if you lived for the last 6 months in the United States, but you are getting divorced in Croatia, then the U.S. law would apply to that divorce. Croatia has a law specifically to handle cases such as this called Zakon o rješavanju sukoba zakona sa propisima drugih državama u određenim odnosima. I'm realizing the lawyer sent that to me without the Cyrillic, so I just made a lot of assumptions, which translates to the law on resolving conflicts between laws and regulations of other states in certain relationships. It outlines how to handle international law conflicts in terms of hierarchy between Croatian law, law of foreign governments, EU directives, as well as multilateral and bilateral agreements. Whenever you have an international element to litigation, the complexity intensifies exponentially. Okay. It is a lovely name, Michael. It truly is. I hope that I did that right. Okay, so it's important to understand that. For example, we got a question, which we're going to do on next week's 5-Question Friday, that is related to adoption. Not adoption, to custody. So in this case, the woman wants to apply for Croatian citizenship for her kids. She has full custody. The other parent does not have any custody at all. And so in this case, it's not straightforward. It is going to involve other laws. But we will dig into that next week, so tune in. Michael says, can we say that law after our next rakia? Yes. Yes. It's been like 4 months since we've had that last rakia, so absolutely, most definitely. We're due for a loza. Okay, so this next question comes from Katie, one of our frequent flyers here on 5 Question Friday. Who can perform wedding ceremonies in Croatia? For example, in the United States, I became an ordained minister and am able to officiate weddings. I'm wondering if there is any program like that here. Can anyone guess what the answer is? There are 2 types of wedding ceremonies in Croatia, religious and civil. So religious ceremonies are performed by a priest. It is recognized by the state, and these are considered to be legal marriages. Civil ceremonies are performed by the matičar, which is the registrar, and it is either in Matični ured, the registrar's office, or at the location of your choice, and you have to pay for them to come out to that location of your wedding. Croatia does not have celebrants or officiants like they do in some other countries like the UK or the US. If someone who is not a registrar or a priest performs a wedding ceremony, it is not considered to be legal, and you would still have to get married at the registrar's office. So, for example, you could do a civil, if you don't want to do a church wedding, you could do a civil ceremony at the registrar's office. I've actually attended one and seen what that looks like. It's nice. Then you could go and do a wedding with an officiant, or your friend can do it, or whatever you want, wherever it is, because your marriage is already legal. So in that case, you're having a symbolic ceremony later, okay? To become a registrar in Croatia, you must be a Croatian citizen and pass the državni ispit, which is a state exam. However, keep in mind that there are limited spots in every city for this position, and it is a difficult job to get. I imagine so. I'm pulling this out of my butt, but I'm doing it in an educated way. If you think about it, there's like typically one registrar's office in each city. Zagreb is probably going to be the exception to that rule. And there are probably some villages that don't even have one. So there's only so many spots available. And once you become one, you're probably doing that for life. You know what I mean? So that's why it would be a very difficult job to get. Michael says you can also get the registrar to come somewhere at a higher fee. Of course. So they charge you based on the distance. It's like per kilometer from the registrar's office. That's how they calculate it. And then also if it's after working hours or if it's on a weekend, they charge you more for that, which makes sense. Okay. All right. So we have a few guides related to this topic. How to get married in Croatia, how to get married in Croatia if one of the spouses is a foreigner, all the types of marital unions in Croatia, and how to obtain a life partnership for same-sex couples. We have all of those guides. If you're on YouTube, it's down in the description. If you are on Instagram, send us a DM and Cam will get those over to you. The other thing I want to say is I know an amazing officiant here in Split. She is extraordinary. She's been doing these kinds of things for many, 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 many years. She's wonderful. So if any of you are out there looking for an officiant to do a symbolic wedding, I know a gal. Okay, so the next question, which I think might be our last one actually, I'm whipping through them today, comes from Liz on the 5 Question Friday forum. What is an expected amount to get charged per hour when needing a court-appointed translator? Excellent question. First time we've gotten this. Let me scroll back down, make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, so just want to make something clear. Whenever you need like an official translation done, you use a court interpreter. That's actually what they're called, is a court interpreter, okay? So there are 2 types of official translation when you may need a court interpreter. There's translation of documents, but there's also the real-time translation for some kind of procedure, okay? So for document translation, costs of official translation vary according to several factors. There's the requested languages and what the combinations are, okay? So English to Croatian, that's going to be the most common. But as you get more complex, there's going to be fewer people who may do those combinations, and therefore the cost may go up. If you need official translation versus unofficial translation, what's the difference? So official translation, they create the translation, they attach it to the original document, then they put a seal on it with like a colorful rope. So they give it the same treatment as like a notarized document, Okay, so sometimes people call it a notarized translation. It's not really a notarized translation, but I can see why there would be some confusion about that. But that's what an official translation is. An unofficial translation would be like, okay, if you're applying for citizenship, you have to write a CV biography. So usually I recommend people write it in their native language. Usually that's English. And then they have it unofficially translated. So it doesn't need to have a seal on it. You just need them to translate it into another Word document for you. So that would be an unofficial translation. Unofficial costs less. There is a delivery deadline. So if you have a short timeline in which you need something delivered, it's going to cost more. The complexity and the volume of the text is also going to make a difference. So if you have like a birth certificate that has minimal text or versus a document that is literally like wall-to-wall text, that's also going to be different. If you need them to format the document, then that's also different. So they can do a translation of a birth certificate, but that doesn't mean that they're actually going to format it for you. If you need it formatted for some reason, that's also going to cost more. So the average price for one translation card, one card is usually one page, of 1,500 characters without spaces is about 15 to 20 euros plus VAT. Lowest is about 8 euros. That's for an English to Croatian translation. The highest is 50 to 75 euros per page. Now, let's talk about real-time translation. So that is needed for certain government procedures for which you are not already fluent in Croatian. The Croatian government in certain cases will require that you have a court interpreter there with you to translate in real time. So one is opening a company or changing a company registration. Usually the public notary who has to do this procedure, they will require that you have a court interpreter, and usually they'll set one up for you. And that cost can vary, okay? And typically it's per hour. So it depends on how long the procedure is going to take. So sometimes opening up a company from scratch, it may take 2 hours, in which case you're paying 2 hours. When I changed my company address some years ago, I only had to pay for 1 hour, but I've never been charged for less than an hour for any of these kinds of procedures. Any contract that requires solemnization in front of a notary, like a home loan agreement, that's also going to require that. So I want to make sure that I make this clear. So when you go to a public notary to accomplish a task, most often you are going that so that they can verify the signature on something. When they're verifying the signature, that does not mean that they're verifying the content, okay? So solemnization is actually verifying the content to make sure that you understand the content, okay? So like a home loan agreement. When I got my home loan with Erste, I had to sit at the public notary. Oh my God, it must have been like 2.5 hours, okay? And I had a court interpreter, and the public notary would read like a couple of paragraphs of the home loan agreement, and then the court interpreter would read it to me and look for my acknowledgement that I understood what I was reading. And then we had to go through the entire, who knows how many pages, 20, 30 pages of all the ways that Erste Bank was going to destroy my life if I defaulted on my loan, essentially. A lifetime support contract is also an example. A lifetime support contract is most often used when you are in a relationship with like an older person and you're taking care of them in their old age, and so in exchange they like give you their apartment or something. That's an example of a lifetime support contract, but there are different ways that can be used. But the content has to be verified and understood. When you're getting married, if you are getting married, you have to use a court interpreter both when you go to the registrar to actually like 3 days before the wedding, you have to go and like do all the final documents. You usually have to have an interpreter there. It's not to say that there aren't registrars who don't make you do that if you are marrying a Croatian person and they can translate, but more often than not, they do require that. Or, and at the ceremony, if you're doing a ceremony like on site somewhere, or even in the registrar's office, or even in a church. No, it's all scenarios. It's all scenarios where one of the spouses, at least one of the spouses, is not fluent in Croatian. You have to have a court interpreter who is real-time translating the ceremony as you go through the ceremony. So that's another example. The last example I can give is when you are testifying in court. You will have to have a court interpreter. So I'm in a lawsuit. I can't tell you anything about it because I don't want to jeopardize it, but I've been waiting for a hearing for 2 years, I guess. Once it's done, I'll tell you all about it. But for now, I'm just sitting here waiting for a hearing. But whenever I eventually go to testify, I'm not fluent in Croatian, so I would have to have a court interpreter. I'll have to pay for a court interpreter to come to the court and real time translate my testimony for me. So that is another example. So the costs for these things, they vary by distance, the time needed, the type of translation, and the hourly rate of the translator, which can also vary. Hey, Eve, thanks so much for being here. So those are our questions for today. I know I totally blew through it, but we've had some longer episodes lately. I've been looking at the recap on YouTube, and the last few have been an hour. So today we're doing this super quick. Because I'm absolutely melted, guys. So what's going on next week? Honestly, I have no idea. My brain is complete, utter melted mush. But I'll be in Split next week, so I'm not sure where I'll record next week. But if you have any questions that you would like us to answer here on 5 Question Friday, please do not hesitate to send those out to us. You can drop them in a comment. You can send us a DM. You can send us an email. Carrier pigeon, however you wish to get us a question, you might see that here on a future episode. I really love keeping you guys company here on Fridays, so thanks for thanks for the honor of being here. I know some of you actually listen on Saturday mornings, so if that's you, good morning. Oh, hey, Tony, the heat is real. The heat is, okay, this is what I'll say though. This feels very intense. I was just talking to my friend about it upstairs. It's was last summer like this? Was it this hot? And what we agreed was that it was, but it wasn't as hot for as long. We started to get really intense heat here in June, and then now we're dealing with this for 2 months. But I think what the saving grace has been this year is that even though the heat has been really intense, at least we've had a breeze. At least on the coast, we've had a breeze. Sometimes it feels like a hairdryer in the face, but at least there's always been a breeze, because if there was no air and it was just still, that would be absolute death, man. But so at the start of every September, we always get a big rain, and then the temperature drops. And it was really funny in the first few years. Croatians would tell me, oh, there's always going to be a big rain at the start of September. I was like, every September, the first week, every year, every week, Sarah, every week. And you know what? They're not wrong. Every year this happens. It might be on the 2nd, it might be on the 7th, but the first week of September, every year, like clockwork, there's a big storm and it cools everything down. And that is why universally everyone agrees that September is the best month to be on the coast in Croatia, because everyone who has kids, they've left because they all have to go back to school. The temperature drops. So instead of 35, which is what we're dealing with today, maybe it'll be 27, 28, 29. It's a lot more manageable. The beaches have emptied out. It's a really nice time to be in Croatia on the coast, September. So if you're thinking about coming to Croatia for a visit and you want to be here during summer, September is always the best time to be here. Really. You're going to have the place to yourself, but you can still enjoy the sea. You can still enjoy the warmth and the sun, and it'll be a lot less oppressive. Right now, it's pretty intense. And when I was on Capri 2 weeks ago, that's where I did the last issue of 5 Question Friday. I gotta say, the last day I was there, I went to the beach in the morning and I was like, you know what? I think I'm done. And I haven't gone to the beach since, because it's just, the sun is so intense and I feel like I got oversunned, quite frankly. So I'm hoping that after this big rain in September, then I'll kind of slide back out to the beach. But the sun is real intense. But you know what? Things could be worse. Still the Adriatic Sea, so I have no complaints about that. All right, anything else to tell you? I don't think so. I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else to ramble on about. If you're just joining us, thank you so much for being here. We have finished all the questions. We just whipped through them today, but never fear. I'm going to post this in our profile, and you can rewatch it. And then probably later tonight or tomorrow, I will post it on YouTube for those of you who watch over there. And that's it. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next Friday for 5 Question Friday. Vidimo, say have a great weekend. Ciao.